Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and lately there's been a lot of buzz with, wide receiver Drake London and the Washington Commanders, so I'm going to be talking about that. If I think it's realistic that the Washington Commanders take him at 11, what his fit would be here, and if I think it would be a good pick. So we'll talk about all that and much more. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content on the road to 7,500 subscribers. So please help me get there. Also hit that like button and turn on those notifications so you never miss a video. And follow the Twitter. Link is in the description. Now, let's get right into the video. Okay, so we are a little over 2 weeks away from the 2022 NFL draft, and there's a bunch of rumors, there's a bunch of mock drafts coming out, and lately there's been some buzz for the Washington Commanders possibly being interested in Drake London, with Ben Standing making a mock draft, having the Washington Commanders select him, and also Jordan Reed from ESPN also had a mock draft with the Washington Commanders selecting Drake London. And I haven't really talked about Drake London too much on the channel, so I wanted to explore that possibility at 11 a little bit more in today's video. So let's go ahead and do it. So like I said, both of those guys had the Washington Commanders selecting Drake London. Jordan Reed, I'll read it right here. He had a 7-round mock draft, and he said, with Carson Wentz in the picture now, the Commanders would be wise to set him up with as many prime targets as possible. Agree with that, said Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel are on the roster, and London is a 6'4" X receiver who complements both of their skill sets. He is a big physical target and underrated route runner, and he reminds me a lot of former Clemson wideout Mike Williams, who was taken in round 1 by the Chargers in 2017. So I definitely would not be upset if we took Drake London at 11. I know a lot of Washington fans really like Chris Olave, but a lot of people actually have Drake London as the number 1 or number 2 receiver in this class. I think most people have Garrett Wilson at that number 1 spot, at least the draft analysts, but some people have Drake London, and some people also have Jameson Williams. It's kind of a 3-way competition for which receiver is going to go off the board first, but who knows? Chris Olave or Treylon Burks or George Pickens could end up being the best receiver in this class, but I really think it's going to be a competition between Drake London and Garrett Wilson, possibly also Jameson Williams, but I do think it's going to be Drake London or Garrett Wilson who ends up being the first receiver taken. And who knows, both of those guys could be taken by the time Washington is picking at 11. And if that is the case, then Washington will probably be looking at Chris Olave. And if 2 receivers are taken in the top 10, then I would assume Kyle Hamilton might be there as well. Maybe Derek Stingley. And, maybe if Kyle Hamilton or Derek Stingley isn't there, maybe they decide to trade back and take the best receiver possible wherever they trade back to. So that is definitely a possibility. Ben Standing, who is an insider for the Washington Commanders, beat reporter, but also he's really good at these mock drafts. I think he's won 2 of the awards for the best mock draft each year, and he has the Washington Commanders selecting Drake London. So 2 different guys selecting Drake London for the Washington Commanders. I think a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, he had Washington taking Derek Stingley, so just keep that in mind. So some background on Drake London. He had a ankle injury, so that ended his season a little bit early. And we'll get back into this. Actually, let's go over his stats and kind of what kind of player he is. So this past season for the USC Trojans, had over 1,000 yards, 12.3 yards per catch, and had 7 touchdowns. And really though, those are impressive numbers if you just look at that. But if you look at how many games he played, that's even more impressive. Look at these yards: 137, 68, 170, 165, 130, 162, 171, and 81 yards. He's about 6'4", 6'5", 220 pounds, and he's that perfect outside receiver. Can play in the slot as well. And one of the problems with him, one of the cons with him, is his injury history. I think the most games he's played is 8 games in a season. One of the seasons was shortened a little bit because of the pandemic, but he has struggled with injuries, and that is a little bit of a concern for bigger receivers, and he's still kind of recovering from that injury because he hasn't, done his pro day yet. It was supposed to be, I think last week, but I got pushed back because he hasn't fully recovered from his injury, so I'm not sure what he's going to do at the pro day. I doubt he runs, but he might do some other things. But he definitely is one of the top receivers in this class, and we all know Carson Wentz, it's not a requirement for his receivers, but he does like the bigger wide receivers. And it's, you look at Alshon Jeffrey, you look at Michael Pittman last year. He does really well with those guys, or just guys in general that are good at coming down with contested catches. And we know already we have a guy on our roster that can do that in Terry McLaurin. Cam Sims also can do that. He's just not at the same level, of course, as Terry McLaurin in terms of overall receiver, but he can make those contested catches. And, I think Cam Sims and him will have a pretty good connection. I think Cam Sims and Carson Wentz will develop a good bond. And, I don't think Cam Sims will be our top receiver or our second or even our third, but he's going to be a good rotational receiver for us. I hope we involve him more in the offense than we have in the past couple years, because especially last year, we really did not use him enough, in my opinion. So real quick, the scouting report on him, I'll give you guys my thoughts as well, but this is from Lance Zierlein, from the NFL.com. You look at his strengths, elite size and length. He's that, perfect outside receiver, got the perfect build, workmanlike with a pro demeanor, extensive experience as an outside and slot target. So yeah, he can definitely be used in the slot. USC threw him a lot of different screens. He has great yards after catch ability, although I am a little bit concerned about how much that'll translate into the NFL, because he's still going to be bigger than a lot of the guys that are covering him and everything that are trying to tackle him. But in college, it was a very big difference, and it allowed him to get a lot of yards after catch. And I still think he's going to be able to do it at the next level, but not as much as he was able to in college. Takes control of the catch space on all three levels, uses strength to create ample space for bucket throws near the boundary. He uses his physicality to get open sometimes. He played basketball in, I think, high school, so that also helps. Good at the contested catches. He's not a great route runner, but he's not as bad as people think when they're saying, oh, he's a big guy, he can't separate. That's not necessarily true. He can separate, not the same as Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson, in my opinion, or Jameson Williams, but he definitely, is better at separating than I think people give him credit for. You look at the weaknesses: lacks desired foot quickness out of release, trouble eluding route redirections in space, will struggle to find desired separation from breaks and turns versus man, runs and moves like an athletic tight end, and not a getaway guy in run after catch. And this is, I like to read these. Sources tell us, I think he's going to test better than people think, but I doubt he runs. I don't care how fast he is. I wouldn't be against him because his ball skills are really special. So that is the report on him. And he says right here that he's, below average toughness as a run blocker. But I thought overall he was a pretty good blocker. Like, you watch him and then you watch Jameson Williams on tape, man, it is a huge difference. And I'm not a film expert or anything. I just like to watch some of their film to get a better sense of these players in case Washington does draft them. And I thought, Drake London was a solid blocker when watching him at USC. So if we took him at 11, he's not my preferred pick. I think I like Garrett Wilson a little bit better. And, him and Olave for me are pretty close. But if the two scenarios are taking London at 11 or trading back and getting Chris Olave at 15 or later, I would rather, do the Olave one, but I'm not sure, first off, if a team wants to trade back, and second off, if we do trade back, if Chris Olave will be there wherever we do trade back with. But I do think London is a person of interest for the Washington Commanders because they do, of course, need a wide receiver. And, he fits the skill set that they need, a kind of outside guy, but a guy that can also play in the slot. They love the versatility. And he also, of course, is a big receiver, which Carson Wentz definitely likes. Again, not a requirement for a Carson Wentz receiver, but definitely something he likes. And I think you look at Michael Pittman, and he's kind of similar to what Drake London, Drake London's similar to what Michael Pittman was coming out of college. And, of course, Carson Wentz had a very good connection with Michael Pittman last year in Indianapolis. Michael Pittman had over 1,000 yards receiving in his second season. So I think Drake London can be that type of player, and, wouldn't be upset if we took him at 11. I know people aren't huge fans of him. I know some people are, but I know the majority of the fan base definitely likes Chris Olave better and would much rather take him at 11. And, who knows? We will see what happens, but there is definitely buzz about London coming to DC. A couple different mock drafts having him select, having the Washington Commanders select him, including an insider for this team. So let me know what you guys think about Drake London. Let's see. Dane Brugler said the ultimate respect for wide receiver is when everyone knows the ball is going to him, yet the defense can't stop him. That sums up London's junior season, 15 targets per game, and they used him a lot in, the screen game a ton. That's why sometimes the stats are a little bit misleading. It was like the Notre Dame game. If you watch that game, he had 8 or 9 screen passes thrown to him, and that's where he got a lot of his yards after catch. And I think they can still use him in the screen game in the NFL, but they're not going to give him 6, 7, 8 screens a game, maybe 1 or 2, but that is it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new. Let me know what you guys think about Drake London, and would you draft him at 11, or would you rather draft someone else? Thanks for watching, and peace.